Adventures in Supply Chain podcast is pleased to announce the Coronavirus and Supply Chain series to help our communities with the insights of outstanding leaders in supply chain and in other critical functions. These challenging times are also for transformations and opportunities. We will get through this together, and we will make it happen. It's our pleasure to introduce Sara Oblack Speicher MBA, mentor, certified mindset coach, business and life strategist, and the founder and president of Sara Oblack Speicher Enterprises. Sara has impacted tens of thousands of women and men and strives to help her clients make their lives a legacy. She encourages her clients to be, to do, and to give their best in the office and at home. For over a decade, she has helped her clients to master the art and science of living a glorious life that serves the dreams of their heart and soul, simplifying and magnifying everything they put into the world so passionately and naturally, serving at their highest levels, and commanding 5- and 6-figure service fees with ease and integrity, deepening relationships and turning the world into their playground, creating more free time and space, alignment, joy, and making significant contribution for themselves and others. And now with you, your host, Marcia, and her amazing guest, Sara Oblack Speicher.
Good morning, Sara. A pleasure to have you on the show. This episode is going to be different from what we have been doing, so I'm excited about that. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Marcia, for having me, and hi, everybody.
Great. It's a pleasure to have you. And as I was saying, this episode is going to be different because we have been talking about the technical skills, the hard aspects. And today we are going to talk about mindset. And since you are an expert on this topic, first we would like to understand what mindset means and how does mindset relate to your work?
Oh, I hope we had like 5 days because I can talk on the topic for days on it.
That's great. We want to know. We don't know much about it, so go ahead.
Well, mindset is, in simple terms, is how we think, how we act, how we react, how we make our decisions. And the mindset is actually playing a big role, especially in situations like our current reality, when you can feel and you can see around you, some people are an absolute mess and some people are absolutely thriving. So when I first started to explore the mindset, I was actually a 12-year-old kid playing basketball across Europe on the tournaments, but that high performance mindset that evolved through the sports was very different from what I had to learn in order to succeed in my business, and then relearn a lot of different things in order to help my clients who are now CEOs, experts, leaders from around the world. And many of them actually bring their teams along, which is something that I look forward to addressing today. Because in order to thrive in a business, in an organization, one thing is to have a vision. One thing is to have this belief that you have what it takes to bring this vision to life. And something entirely different is to empower each person on your team to believe in themselves enough to then realign with this big vision. And especially in situations like today, when people all of a sudden are working from home, they're left to their own devices, they're juggling parenting and homeschooling and uncertainty of what the next couple of months are going to bring, it can be a hot mess, not to mention taken out of their social circles, taken out of the circles of colleagues, that you're used to meeting every day. To kind of bring it back to your original question, mindset, at the end, it's only 5% of what we do consciously. 95%, and that's the tricky part, is subconscious. And that's what dictates our, subconscious limiting beliefs and the patterns and how we react and respond and the perception that we have. So at the end of the day, if you envision having glasses on, and the lenses are tinted pink, that's the mindset. Everything that you're going to see is going to be those pink shades, right? If you change it into blue, everything is going to be bluish. So mindset ultimately is peeling back all of those layers so that whatever you see can be seen clearly. And a spoiler alert, it's a work that never ends. It's like peeling back the layers. Every new level brings a new level, and it's an ongoing process.
Yes, no, as you were saying, it's so important, that aspect. And also, I like the point that you made about bringing others together. Because with these transformations, with this business, supply chain transformation, involve many stakeholders with different perspectives, different point of view. Like you were saying with the pandemic, that each of us have different situations. So how can you bring that team to have the right mindset? So how can they do that, right? Like as the leader in a team, how can they bring others to be like a high performance team?
A beautiful question. Um, a lot of times, typically it starts with us first and foremost. And it doesn't go just for the surface, technical aspects of how can I overcome my obstacles? How can I reframe the picture in which I'm operating? How can I, a lot of high performance, high achieving executive CEOs, on paper to outside world, you have everything. You're the super successful person who's rolling around in Maserati or whatever, your paycheck has I don't know how many zeros. On the inside, you're everything but, because there's always more. There's always something different. There's always the insecurities that are coming up. And a lot of times what we're creating on the outside is just a mask to shield us from this core wound that's ultimately our greatest gift that has been given to us. So when it comes to empowering others and those around us, it's important to understand that whoever's around us, it's literally a reflection of what's going on inside us. And people around us, just as much as events and opportunities, are magnetized by the level at which we are vibrating. I know this is a little bit more of a quantum physics conversation, and to some people might be a little bit woo conversation. But at the end of the day, when you realize how this is all a domino effect, you can also go and reverse engineer it, and you can realize how, just by changing yourself and changing a stand and then changing your perception of yourself, of your role, of your goals, of your vision, you're now creating a whole different space. You're expanding the capacity to receive more and to bring other people on board as well. But if you go back to the technical aspects, over the years, team building has been really something that's very common in Fortune 500 companies, right? And it typically is like a weekend event or a couple of days of event when you bring the team on board, you work on a particular issue, you help them connect with each other, all in terms of building a team that's stronger, a little bit more connected. What we're doing here, we're going deeper and working on individual level with each particular key team member. Because again, on the outside, you can have, it looks amazing, but from the world of basketball, and one of the things that I will always carry with me, chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So in the current situation, we're seeing a lot of people, especially women, especially moms, who are forced to choose to leave the workforce. And all the training, all of the investment that the company has put into them in developing them is out now. And it's creating a huge void that now takes a lot of resources to fill. Not to mention what does that do on a personal and individual level? They're losing their income. They're forced to choose. They're forced to do things differently. And a lot of times, again, mindset plays a vital role. And I can speak from experience. I lost my job when I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter. So I was in those shoes, but I was able to pick and choose. I didn't see myself a victim of her circumstance. I was like, oh, this is the best possibility ever. The chances are limitless. I can do something different now. So, a long story short.
Yes, but you were saying that at the beginning. You can see some people that they see this pandemic as the worst thing could ever happen, and there are others that are thriving in this time. So it's very important, all those points. And also, you mentioned that everything should start with ourselves. So first is the change in our own person. So how do we do that? Do you have any practical examples like, okay, I want to change my mindset. So then we will expand to the others. But first, the change needs to be in myself. How do I do
that? Well, as first you said, everything is perception and perception is reality, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to understand that it is an ongoing process and that it will require, most likely at certain point, to team up with somebody who will challenge you, who will guide you, who will help you see your blind spots because you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And oftentimes I talk to experts and high achieving business owners and leaders, and they're like, this is all that I do for my people. I should be able to help myself. And I was like, you can be the best neurosurgeon in the world. You cannot operate on your own brain. Mm-hmm. However, that said, there are things that you can do and start doing immediately to cultivate this awareness so that you are now aware of, let's say, the negative emotions that you're feeling so that you can go back and examine what happened right before you got triggered. Start recognizing those patterns and then start being really curious and in a very loving way, because what we tend to do is we shame ourselves and we guilt ourselves and the cycle just continues. So if we can remove the shame and guilt and just be in a very loving and curious way, I wonder where this is coming up. I wonder where this is coming from. I wonder what this is trying to show me. And you know what? I can see this as a story now, and you know what? It's not even mine. It was passed down from my grandma, who kept telling me that the successful woman is the one that is independent, has her own financial means, doesn't need anybody. But you know what I was also told? That woman is a biatch, I don't know if you use that language here, but she's selfish and that relying on anybody else will be the death of her, and so on and so on. So there's conflicting story. We don't know as kids when we're passed down on the stories, not even mention epigenetics. So as we are building this awareness, as we are noticing all those stories, it's a beautiful and a simple way of simply choosing differently. It's micro alignments, because shifting 1 degree ultimately is going to take you to a whole new destination. And again, it is a process, and there are a lot of different tools. I personally use journaling, meditation, physical exercise. It took me 10 years to get back on track.
Yeah.
But again, I used to really shame myself for how could you be an athlete, international athlete, and look at yourself now. I was like, I just need to give myself time to get back into the space. Yeah. And mindset is simply something that cannot be forced. Mm-hmm. You have to do it voluntarily, and it is a process. But now when you take responsibility and when you notice what is coming up and you're loving on it and you choose to release it and you choose to reframe it, now you start shifting, and sooner or later you will realize the things that used to trigger you, the things that used to upset you, that you sometimes even took out on others, are no longer the case. And if you're looking for some of the symptoms, like in this arena, some of the symptoms of high successful yet deeply wounded beings would be snapping at your kids, who all they want is your time to play with you, right? And with everything going on, like, leave me alone, right? Not right now. Or you ask them to just sit still, for God's goodness gracious. We're asking you for 15 time now, just sit still. then you have a partner who, you're deeply connected with, and yet you have this sexless marriage, and you're taking it out on them, and you're doubting in yourself, like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And you're pushing yourself even harder, leading to a burnout to overcompensate. Then you have, I would imagine, in supply chain with all these, uncertainties, broken chain of communication, broken distribution, million reasons to have a freak out, legit freak out. But you don't have to participate in it. You can elevate yourself above it in a very elegant and empowering way. So I hope this provides you with some insights and some practical and pragmatic tools.
Yes, very helpful. So we need to start with an analysis of the different situations, and if I understood you correctly, and see the different patterns. First, to raise awareness, and then see how we approach them.
Yeah,
that's great, Sara. And I have a follow-up question that I think actually it may have a similar answer, because we all hear that we need to learn from mistakes.
Yes.
And I published a book, and I mentioned that because in my book I mix the technical and soft aspect of this transformation. And I thought, because it happened to me, when you make a mistake, right? And then it says, okay, yes, you need to learn the mistakes, but how can we do that in an effective way? How can we approach them?
If you are open-minded, I'm going to offer something that might sound a little unconventional. What if there are no mistakes? What if you could not possibly make a mistake, right? Because if we look on a higher level as multidimensional beings, everything is assigned, everything is preset, everything is by choice. Yeah. So what if now that we have experienced something unpleasant and we look back and we're like, oh, I should have done it differently. Well, what if there was a lesson for us to take? Because at the end of the day, the lesson is keep going to be coming up until we learn it. And sometimes it will come with the pain. So do we take the pain or we take the lesson? But in a more pragmatic way, again, just loving on ourselves. And this is really hard when we are raised to believe that we are our own results, whether it's numbers on a scoreboard, whether it's numbers on a bank account, on the report card, on a scale even. Yeah. It really takes conscious work and shifting to realize that we as human beings, to detach from the outside and start seeing from the inside and start seeing ourselves as the source. So I hope this answers the question.
Yes, and very, very helpful insight. And I like because you are providing practical actions that we can take, as you were mentioning with the example in supply chain today, that we don't have enough materials. Just to give you an example, one time a supplier was saying that they were going to deliver by a certain date, and the night before they say we cannot. So everything relates, all the aspects, all the points that you are mentioning, because we can take an action, say, okay, we are going to call the supplier and say how bad they are performing and keep saying that so they feel guilty and they do something for us. Or actually have a different approach, and that relates to mindset, and see how we can resolve, and then we decide what we are going to do with the supplier, right? Exactly. We have different choices when we have this situation.
Exactly. And one more thing to piggyback on this beautiful reminder that you just provided, empathy is one of the key aspects, not just with dealing with our suppliers, but also dealing with our own team. And a lot of leaders have found themselves in a space right now when on the inside, literally freaking out, not knowing from today to tomorrow what's going to happen, not knowing who from the team will leave, who will have to be let go of, how we're going to meet the responsibilities towards our shareholders, how are we going to meet the responsibilities towards our clients, how are we going to meet the responsibilities towards our family that's waiting for us and relying on us at home. So it's a lot going on. So with the empathetic approach, you can also see that it's not a weakness to be kind, and it's not a weakness to ask for help, and also engage your team. Just because you're in a leadership position doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. No one does have all the answers. So one of the things that I would invite you to consider if you're finding yourself in this situation is to change the rules of the game. There's no rule that said that you could not gather your team and come together with a brainstorming session and creative solutions, especially for the people on the front lines. They're seeing things differently than you are through the reports. They have different experiences than you might have. And, there's no weakness in saying, I don't have the answers, but I'm working on it. Because, yes, to some people, it might be the optics. But again, if that's the only thing they can go by, they need to know that they're not forgotten. They need to know that they're still, supported and thought of and thought about, and that things are moving in a way that includes them. And if it doesn't, then be straightforward with them so they can prepare and make different plans.
Yes, great point, Sara. Yes, this has been very helpful, and I would like to thank you again, because with this we are having awareness, right? We are raising awareness of how mindset is important, and we can work on this, in particular in these times, to become stronger, to be better, to have our teams better, and of course our families better. So it's a critical aspect that sometimes, because it's a soft aspect, we don't give the importance that it deserves. So thank you very much for the examples and the practical tips that you are providing us. So thank you so much, Sara.
Well, thank you for having me. It's my absolute pleasure, and I hope it serves the audience, and I hope it gives them exactly what they're looking for, whether it's kicking the behind or inspiration or motivation or a light bulb going off.
Yes, and as you mentioned, we can start today with this change. We don't need to wait any longer. We can analyze what happened in the past and find those patterns. So there are actions that we can take. So
absolutely.
That's why I think it's so important.
And if I can add to that, a lot of times it's not going to be the outside reality that will drastically shift. It will come from within. Mm-hmm. And one of the most profound experiences that I've had was, like I said, the successful international athlete, continued here, got an MBA degree, moving to a job, and then starting my own business that took off immediately. I was flying high. Yeah. But after my second daughter was born, I did not realize that the same mindset, the same habits, the same work ethics is going to nearly kill me, my marriage, my business. So what I had to learn was unlearning first and foremost. And I had to understand that time, in supply chain, everything is timed, everything is measured, right?
Yes.
And yet time is just an illusion, which means that some changes might be instantaneous. So nowhere does it say that an order cannot be delivered. It was lost somewhere in transit. It took weeks, but nowhere it says that the next hour it couldn't show up. So the same as with those changes, sometimes the process that I described, and there's a lot more depth to it. Sometimes, yes, it will take weeks, it will take months, it will take years. Sometimes when you really get it down to science, it's like, oh, look, I'm noticing this, bam, done, right? And you can realign and reshift. So, and it was the same here when we moved into this beautiful space with my husband almost a decade ago. I needed what was it, like 7 years for it to feel like home. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, you know what? This is my home. We're still living here, but I don't feel like being in a cage anymore. It feels like, oh, wow, this is my sanctuary.
Yeah.
And again, reality did not change. My perception did.
Yes. No, excellent example. Excellent. Yes, and there are certain aspects like mindset. It takes time to change. It cannot be instantly. That's why we keep talking about this. And today, for example, okay, I feel like I was commenting to a colleague. I was saying today I'm feeling great, but then in a few hours I'm not feeling so great. So there are like those roller coasters of emotions, even on the same day. And with the pandemic, that gets worse. So it's something that we need to keep working, and it takes time. But
yeah,
we can take action. So that's the positive aspect.
Absolutely. But then there's a term I just came across the other day, forced positivity, toxic positivity. There has to be room in just allowing yourself to be human.
Yes.
Right? And, everything has a right to exist. Anger, sadness, jealousy even, all of it has a right to exist. It's just what we choose to do with it that makes the difference. Yeah. And do we choose to, now, oh my gosh, something bad happens, now my whole day is ruined. Versus, oh, what, it was a bad moment, but I still have 25 hours.
Yes.
Making a day to 25 hours. Why not?
Yes. You're absolutely right. Yes, it's the way that we are taking our approach, and also the action that we are taking, as you indicated. So to me, this has been a great episode. I enjoy it very much. So thank you again. Thank you so much, Sara, for bringing all these important points.